Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. My name's Matt, and today we're going to talk about a story. Now, I kind of want to I was thinking about this today, and I just have a lot of stuff that's happened to me over the last couple of years. A lot of crazy stories, a lot of interesting things. So, I'm going to try and make this kind of like a segment, kind of like a late night slash evening segment of just talking about some of these stories. So, I thought it's a good idea to bring up this one story, and I really want to like part of me doing this too is to get more comfortable, just sort of sharing my story with you guys is like if I'm talking to a friend and just kind of just sharing what I went through and sharing what I learned, so that maybe you guys can learn a thing or two from it or just find it entertaining. Um, so I wanted to like yeah, I wanted to start with the story. Where I worked pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Well, this place, you know, again, I'm not going to really be that specific because I really don't want, if anybody here, you know, used to work with me, or maybe my employer is watching this. Like, I don't really want to, give away names or anywhere specific because it was a government job. But I was really blessed and lucky to work in a really beautiful place for 2 seasons. Well, 2 years. Well, technically 2 seasons because um, I didn't really work in the wintertime during those years. But so yeah, this was a very interesting story. So I first started applying to a bunch of places, and I'm not going to specify where, but um, maybe you guys are smart enough to know exactly what kind of category this is. But it was a beautiful location I worked at, and so how it started was um, I just finished a course in college, and I was like contemplating on continuing to do it. And I said I just what I was studying at that time I just couldn't do. I was only like 22, 21. This was during the pandemic, and really did not have any idea what I was doing. And I just remembered to myself, I'm like, I want to try something new. I want to try and go somewhere really remote, somewhere completely, you know, outside of my comfort zone, somewhere where well, not somewhere where, because here's the funny thing about this was that I was there before working there. I was there prior visiting this place, which was kind of funny because little did I know that I would start working there, um, 2 years later. So I visited this place for a while during the pandemic, and beautiful place again, like really beautiful place. And little did I know that my um, whatever that would lead me there would lead me to eventually work there and live there, because I was working and living there. I had living arrangements there, which was great because it was all free rent, and as long as you worked, you got to stay there. There was housing available for people, free rent obviously, didn't have to pay anything, and it was a really sweet gig. Um, but so I was just like, after I finished that year, my semester in college, I'm like, I really want to do something completely different. And I ended up calling a bunch of places that I was interested in applying for. Again, don't really want to specify where. And I called up the place where I started working at, the beautiful place I mentioned, trying to be as like specific but not give away too much information. Um, so I applied there. I sent my resume in, and then I called them directly. I called the office, and the superintendent picked up, and he's like, "Hey, we're looking for somebody. We actually had somebody leave, or placed on leave. I'll forward your resume through, and we'll give you a call back." And it was that day where I went back to my apartment where I was staying at near my college campus, and I opened up my email, and the superintendent emailed me saying, actually, he didn't say anything. He just sent me the contract to start working with the date, the start time, and everything. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like, no interview, which I found a bit odd. And it was like 2 weeks before the start date. So I was super stoked, super excited, and I was like, you know what? Let's try this out. Let's get this. Let's go up there because I've already been up there, but I've never, you know, I had no idea what I was getting into, working up there. And yeah, I remember 2 weeks later, I just started packing a bunch of stuff in my car, started, getting all my camping stuff. Well, that's probably going to give it away, but I started putting all my gear in my car. Um, I knew a bunch of places where I went fishing the years prior, and I was like, oh, this is going to be like the best time ever. There's going to be, lots of, I can go to all these fishing spots that I went to before. And man, it was just such a cool experience for me to get that contract. So I signed it right away. I was like, I'll be up there, during the start date. I'll see you then. So I remember, and this place is 10 hours from where I was staying. So, and it was remote. This is a very remote place. There's only like a couple towns nearby. And so I went up there the first, it was like yeah, it was the 1st of May. I went up there, and I had, expectations of like, how it was going to be, who I was going to meet. Um, and I had all these thoughts in my head about, what the living conditions were going to be like. So remember the first day it was pouring rain, and I drove up with my car in the morning. Well, the night, well, I actually drove up there 10 hours straight the day before, and I got a motel, and I just stayed there for the night to get ready for the morning. So that morning, I woke up and it was pouring rain, like absolutely pouring rain. And I drove up to the staff housing, because that's what it's called, the housing where I was going to be living in and working in for the rest of the year. And I arrived, and there's like a few cars outside the parking lot. I remember there being this this big orange pickup truck, like, I don't really want to name the brand just in case, but yeah, like orange pickup truck, and then a few other cars. And I just had that feeling of like, oh my goodness. And I looked around me, and I'm like, this is where I'm gonna be living for the next little while. And my expectations were like, you get your own cabin, there's gonna be nice, facilities. And I get there, and there's just these rundown shacks, right? Little bay for maintenance, and all the trucks and stuff. Any of you guys that have some common sense probably know, you know, what type of job this is. So I go up to the door because obviously I want to get settled in, and I look through, and there's people roaming around, and I kind of look through, and I'm like, I'm like a lost tourist. I just kind of knock on the door, and I'm like, can you let me in? And then somebody came, this one guy came to the door. Well, um, later on, like I'll probably split this up into different parts, but um, he opened the door. Well, he opened the door for now, right? He opened the door, and he's like, "Hey, nice to meet you. What are you here for?" And I'm like, I'm starting today." He's like, "Okay, come on in." And there was him and two other guys. One guy was just sitting. It was like there was a common area, and then there was a kitchen. And I just remember just kind of plopping myself at the kitchen table, and this one guy was on his phone. The other guy was kind of, and they both looked at me. And these guys, I made friends with them after, and I'm still friends with them. I haven't talked to them in a while, but um, because they live pretty far away now, and they're kind of doing their own thing. But I remember just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I did not expect these kind of living arrangements. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I thought you get like your own cabin and stuff. And they're like, oh, nope. And this was the first time, mind you, that I was, getting prepared to share with somebody, like sharing a room with somebody. I was gonna have a roommate. This was like a college dorm type of experience, which I did not expect. My expectations were like, because I'm a private guy when it comes to like having my own space and stuff. And I just remember um, a moment of like, oh, this is going to be very interesting. So I'm potentially going to be getting a roommate. So yeah, I remember, and then I sat down for a little bit, and then the guy that let me in, um, he was like a lumberjack. Like this guy, like what I picture the people working at this location, I pictured like rough lumberjack, you know, like a true sportsman, a true outdoors guy, hunter, and this guy fishes every day, and this guy fit the description. Well, little did I know he was going to be something else later on, which I'll get to that. But um, so he's like, "You guys ready to start?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'm ready to start." Haven't unloaded my car and all my essentials. Haven't gotten any food in me. Like I didn't have any breakfast that morning, and we had to go open up pretty much all of the living areas. So like open up the bathrooms because this, everybody just arrived at the time where things are, we had to open things up. So we had to go turn on the water. We had to go, turn on the electrical, just get everything running so people could actually live inside these these houses. So we went around and did that, and it was just, and I remember, we went around and did that, and I remember, going, and picking up my room, and I was like, holy crap, like you know, this is like, yeah, I was like, this is it. Like I'm here, no turning back. I had like, you know, second thoughts about me being here, and I'm like, oh man, like, did I make a good decision? Did I do this on impulse? Am I meant to stay here? You know, and there was only these three guys that were here, so I was like, okay, like, are these going to be the only people I'm working with through the summer? Um, or are there going to be more? Little did I know that the weeks following that there would be about 30 people that would be in our little shack, because that's what it pretty much was. When there was 30 people, it was chaotic. You had um, different hours in the morning, people's alarm going off for different shifts. Just something that I was completely not used to. I was just so used to just being on my own in my own little space in my, the first apartment that I had in college, and I had never experienced like a college dorm type of style living, but that's what it was. That's what it was turning out to be. So I went to sleep that night, and I had all these thoughts racing in my head. I'm like, I drove up all the way here, 10 hours. The expectations, you know, some of them were true with the people that I met, like meeting that one guy, and I'm gonna talk about him later. That's gonna be, well, soon. Um, and big jacked up guy. He had an Australian accent, and he was like this like lumberjack outdoors type of guy. And I'm like, man, okay, I pictured you being here. I definitely pictured you being here. And the other two were they were younger than me. One of them um, uh, was in the military, and the other one was just out of college as well. So they were kind of, students. But this job it was a unionized kind of thing too. One of the guys that was from the military, one of my friends now, um, he yeah, he got a permanent contract, so it's like a reoccurring thing. You come back every season. Yeah, it's permanent until you leave, which was pretty sweet. Which was what I was, in my head, little later on was going to try and aim for. So the second day, I got, went, got up early because we started in the morning, and made my breakfast. That's when I got all settled in. I got my stuff in, the, in the shared common area. Got all my stuff, got all my food. Just made some oatmeal and some toast and whatnot, and went out to go start my first day at work. Well, my second day at work, but first day actually out doing the job that we're supposed to be doing. Um, so we all just kind of had a meeting. Well, our supervisor, the big jacked guy, yeah. So we said we're gonna have a meeting in the morning, and we're like, okay, let's have a meeting in the morning and talk about, We want to talk about our schedule, talk about stuff. And he brought up, he's like, okay, before we do all that, there's one thing we have to get clear, and I'm gonna have to share with you guys. And we all, like, he said it in such a way that was very, very suspicious. Like, what's going on? What is he gonna say? Everybody was like, is somebody gonna get fired? Is somebody, because the way he said it was like something big was gonna hit. So he opened up this paper, and I think he hand wrote this, and he first read out a a part of the agreement. Like, it's called a, like, one of the union agreements. Like, there's rules that specify um, certain rules and stuff, what you can and cannot say, what's allowed in the union. He started talking about all the rules, and then he brought up something which shocked everybody. He said, you know, just letting you guys know, I am transitioning into a girl. So this guy was going to be transgender. He said that um, he's currently in his transition phase, and um, that if there's any problems, that should be brought up with union members and the union board, and that he has a right to be saying all this stuff, and his right um, to transition. And I remember that moment. I was so shocked. And that's when in my head just started, like, I've never experienced that before. That was one big surprise for me. And me and the other guys kind of looked at each other like, is this guy, is he joking? Like, there's no way. Like, this is somebody in my head that I pictured coming up here that was exactly how I imagined, like, this outdoors rough kind of guy, and he had a thick Australian accent. I'm like, this is the last person that I would see that would want to transition. And it didn't really stick with me until this wasn't a joke anymore, until it was reality that this person is actually being for real and he's not joking. And oh man, like, that was like, I'm sure that's, many people have probably had, or not. I don't know if you guys can relate to me, but I'm just kind of sharing what I went through. This moment of, like, shock, of like, this is the last person I would see doing this. So already in my head, like, I was already, unsettled as well from that, and thinking that this was maybe some kind of joke, or he was playing tricks on us. But it was real. Like, he was, when the weeks to come, this guy would start coming in. He'd paint his fingernails. He would, and then later on, as we progressed, um, he would start to try and make himself look more feminine. So, okay, that's the first part of my little story here about this place I worked at. So we got another one lined up, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little segment. This has helped me um, kind of open up a bit more and try and be more of a storyteller. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you hope you learned some stuff, hope you found it entertaining. And you got more to come because the story doesn't end. There's quite a lot of bit that I learned from this experience. So I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.